This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. This video is important. It's a little longer than usual, but it is information dense. I know a lot of people don't have time or energy to go through the almost 450 pages of the Mueller Report, which was released on Thursday. So like and comment on this video and share it with your social network to get the information out there, because if we let Donald Trump and the brainwashed horde of MAGA mouth breathers twist the truth by creating their own narrative, then we're in grave danger of losing just that, the truth. And if you're new here, subscribe to my channel and join me for my almost daily videos commenting on, among other things, the stupid Donald Trump. So, like I said, and as you likely know, the Mueller Report was released on Thursday. Scratch that, because accuracy matters. Bill Barr's redacted version of the Mueller Report was released, and though the report does establish that there was no formal, tacitly agreed upon conspiracy involving Donald Trump's campaign and Russian intelligence officials, better known as collusion, there was certainly a desire to accept the assistance of the Russians, but apparently nothing that actually rose to the level of technical criminality. So Donald Trump and his shallow gene pool offspring are, again, technically able to accurately claim no collusion. However, the other element to this investigation isn't able to be dismissed with the oft-repeated simpleton shout of no obstruction. And that is what I'm going to go over. Special Counsel Robert Mueller and the Office of the Special Counsel outlined 11 very troubling behaviors which exemplify Donald Trump's obstructive conduct and paint a crystal clear picture of a man who is desperate to cover his own butt by obstructing justice. These clumsy attempts were blatant in their nature, but just because he has the criminal acumen of a bumbling toddler doesn't make his criminal motives any less criminal. These attempts included getting rid of James Comey to stop the investigation, a series of attempts to both limit the investigation of Robert Mueller and to end the investigation by attempting to discredit him and fire him. Other fumblingly stupid acts were related to witness coercion through praise, the dangling of pardons, ridicule, and threats. The report lists these obstructive acts in detail and explains the very tough position the special counsel's office was in related to any action against Donald Trump. It explains that because Robert Mueller is merely a lawyer within the Department of Justice, he is bound by the DOJ's ridiculous Office of Legal Counsel policy about being unable to prosecute a sitting president. The policy specifically states, quote, "The indictment or criminal prosecution of a sitting president would impermissibly undermine the capacity of the executive branch to perform its constitutionally assigned functions in violation of the constitutional separations of powers." So, in other words, the Department of Justice policy currently states that even if the President of the United States were to set fire to the White House on national television, he couldn't be prosecuted until he was out of office. Again, that's not law. That's the current policy of the Department of Justice. What Robert Mueller absolutely did not do is exonerate Donald Trump. In fact, he wrote this after explaining how prosecution wasn't an option because he's investigating a sitting president. Quote, "If we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, however, we are unable to reach that judgment. The evidence we obtained about the president's actions and intent presents difficult issues that prevent us from conclusively determining that no criminal conduct occurred. Accordingly, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him," unquote. Now, I'm going to read directly from the redacted Mueller report. These are the summaries of the 11 aspects of obstructive behaviors outlined by Robert Mueller and the Office of the Special Counsel. This is contained on pages 3 through 8 of Volume 2, or pages 215 through 220 of the electronic PDF copy, if you're following along at home. Number 1. The campaign's response to reports about Russian support for Trump. During the 2016 presidential campaign, questions arose about the Russian government's apparent support for candidate Trump. After WikiLeaks released politically damaging Democratic Party emails that were reported to have been hacked by Russia, Trump publicly expressed skepticism that Russia was responsible for the hacks at the same time that he and other campaign officials privately sought information from Redacted about any further planned WikiLeaks releases. Trump also denied having any business in or connections to Russia, even though as late as June 2016, the Trump Organization had been pursuing a licensing deal for a skyscraper to be built in Russia called Trump Tower Moscow. After the election, the president expressed concerns to advisors that reports of Russia's election interference might lead the public to question the legitimacy of his election. Number 2, conduct involving FBI Director Comey and Michael Flynn. In mid-January 2017, incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn falsely denied to the vice president, other administration officials, and FBI agents that he had talked to Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak about Russia's response to U.S. sanctions on Russia for its election interference. On January 27th, the day after the president was told that Flynn had lied to the vice president and had made similar statements to the FBI, the president invited FBI Director Comey to a private dinner at the White House and told Comey that he needed loyalty. On February 14th, the day after the president requested Flynn's resignation, the president told an outside advisor, quote, "Now that we fired Flynn, the Russia thing is over," unquote. The advisor disagreed and said the investigations would continue. Later that afternoon, the president cleared the Oval Office to have a one-on-one meeting with Comey. Referring to the FBI's investigation of Flynn, the president said, quote, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. I hope you can let this go," unquote. Shortly after requesting Flynn's resignation and speaking privately to Comey, the president sought to have Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland draft an internal letter stating that the president had not directed Flynn to discuss sanctions with Kislyak. McFarland declined because she did not know whether that was true, and a White House counsel's office attorney thought that the request would look like a quid pro quo for an ambassadorship she had been offered. Number 3. The president's reaction to the continuing Russia investigation. In February 2017, Attorney General Jeff Sessions began to assess whether he had to recuse himself from campaign-related investigations because of his role in the Trump campaign. In early March, the president told White House counsel Don Magan to stop Sessions from recusing. And after Sessions announced his recusal on March 2nd, the president expressed anger at the decision and told advisors that he should have an attorney general who would protect him. That weekend, the president took Sessions aside at an event and urged him to unrecuse. Later in March, Comey publicly disclosed at a congressional hearing that the FBI was investigating, quote, "the Russian government's effort to interfere in the 2016 presidential election," unquote, including any links or coordination between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. In the following days, the president reached out to the Director of National Intelligence and the leaders of the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency to ask them what they could do to publicly dispel the suggestion that the president had any connection to the Russian election interference effort. The president also twice called Comey directly, notwithstanding guidance from Magan to avoid direct contacts with the Department of Justice. Comey had previously assured the president that the FBI was not investigating him personally, and the president asked Comey to, quote-unquote, lift the cloud of the Russia investigation by saying that publicly. Number 4, the president's termination of Comey. On May 3rd, 2017, Comey testified in a congressional hearing but declined to answer questions about whether the president was personally under investigation. Within days, the president decided to terminate Comey. The president insisted that the termination letter, which was written for public release, state that Comey had informed the president that he was not under investigation. The day of the firing, the White House maintained that Comey's termination resulted from independent recommendations from the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General that Comey should be discharged for mishandling the Hillary Clinton email investigation. But the president had decided to fire Comey before hearing from the Department of Justice. The day after firing Comey, the president told Russian officials that he had, quote, faced great pressure because of Russia, unquote, which had been, quote unquote, taken off by Comey's firing. The next day, the president acknowledged in a television interview that he was going to fire Comey regardless of the Justice Department's recommendation, and that when he, quote, decided to just do it, unquote, he was thinking that, quote, this thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story, unquote. The president said, quote, as far as I'm concerned, I want this thing to be absolutely done properly, unquote, adding that firing Comey, quote, might even lengthen out the investigation, unquote. Number 5, the appointment of a special counsel and efforts to remove him. On May 17, 2017, the acting attorney general for the Russia investigation appointed a special counsel to conduct the investigation and related matters. The president reacted to the news that a special counsel had been appointed by telling advisors that it was the end of his presidency and demanding that Sessions resign. Sessions submitted his resignation, but the president ultimately did not accept it. The president told aides that the special counsel had conflicts of interest and suggested that the special counsel therefore could not serve. The president's advisors told him the asserted conflicts were meritless and had already been considered by the Department of Justice. On June 14, 2017, the media reported that the special counsel's office was investigating whether the president had obstructed justice. Press reports called this a major turning point in the investigation. While Comey had told the president he was not under investigation following Comey's firing, the president was now under investigation. The president reacted to this news with a series of tweets criticizing the Department of Justice and the special counsel's investigation. On June 17, 2017, the president called Magan at home and directed him to call the acting attorney general and say that the special counsel had conflicts of interest and must be removed. Magan did not carry out the direction, however, deciding that he would resign rather than trigger what he regarded as a potential Saturday night massacre. Number 6. Efforts to curtail the special counsel's investigation. 2 days after directing Magan to have the special counsel removed, the president made another attempt to affect the course of the Russia investigation. On June 19, 2017, the president met one-on-one in the Oval Office with his former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, a trusted advisor outside the government, and dictated a message for Lewandowski to deliver to Sessions. The message said that Sessions should publicly announce that notwithstanding his recusal from the Russia investigation, the investigation was very unfair to the president. The president had done nothing wrong, and Sessions planned to meet with the special counsel and let him move forward with investigating election meddling for future elections. Lewandowski said he understood what the president wanted Sessions to do. 1 month later, in another private meeting with Lewandowski on July 19, 2017, the president asked about the status of his message for Sessions to limit the special counsel investigation to further election interference. Lewandowski told the president that the message would be delivered soon. Hours after the meeting, the president publicly criticized Sessions in an interview with the New York Times and then issued a series of tweets making it clear that Sessions' job was in jeopardy. Lewandowski did not want to deliver the president's message personally, so he asked senior White House official Rick Dearborn to deliver it to Sessions. Dearborn was uncomfortable with the task and did not follow through. Number 7. Efforts to prevent public disclosure of evidence. In the summer of 2017, the president learned that media outlets were asking questions about the June 9, 2016 meeting at Trump Tower between senior campaign officials, including Donald Trump Jr., and a Russian lawyer who was said to be offering damaging information about Hillary Clinton as part of Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump. On several occasions, the president directed aides not to publicly disclose the emails setting up the June 9 meeting, suggesting that the emails would not leak and that the number of lawyers with access to them should be limited. Before the emails became public, the president edited a press statement for Trump Jr. by deleting a line that acknowledged that the meeting was with an individual who Trump Jr. was told might have information helpful to the campaign, and instead said only that the meeting was about adoptions of Russian children. When the press asked questions about the president's involvement in Trump Jr.'s statement, the president's personal lawyer repeatedly denied the president had played any role. Number 8, further efforts to have the Attorney General take control of the investigation. In early summer 2017, the president called Sessions at home and again asked him to reverse his recusal from the Russia investigation. Sessions did not reverse his recusal. In October 2017, the president met privately with Sessions in the Oval Office and asked him to take a look at investigating Clinton. In December 2017, shortly after Flynn pleaded guilty pursuant to a cooperation agreement, the president met with Sessions in the Oval Office and suggested, according to notes taken by a senior advisor, that if Sessions unrecused and took back supervision of the Russia investigation, he would be a hero. The president told Sessions, "I'm not going to do anything or direct you to do anything. I just want to be treated fairly." In response, Sessions volunteered that he had never seen anything improper on the campaign and told the president there was a whole new leadership team in place. He did not unrecuse. Number 9. Efforts to have Magan deny that the president had ordered him to have the special counsel removed. In early 2018, the press reported that the president had directed Magan to have the special counsel removed in June 2017, and that Magan had threatened to resign rather than carry out the order. The president reacted to the news stories by directing White House officials to tell Magan to dispute the story and create a record stating he had not been ordered to have the special counsel removed. Magan told those officials that the media reports were accurate in stating that the president had directed Magan to have the special counsel removed. The president then met with Magan in the Oval Office and again pressured him to deny the reports. In the same meeting, the president also asked Magan why he had told the special counsel about the president's effort to remove the special counsel and why Magan took notes of his conversation with the president. Magan refused to back away from what he remembered happening and perceived the president to be testing his mettle. Number 10, conduct toward Flynn, Manafort, and a redacted individual. After Flynn withdrew from a joint defense agreement with the president and began cooperating with the government, the president's personal counsel left a message for Flynn's attorneys reminding them of the president's warm feelings toward Flynn, which he said still remains, asking for a heads up if Flynn knew information that implicates the president. When Flynn's counsel reiterated that Flynn could no longer share information pursuant to a joint defense agreement, the president's personal counsel said he would make sure that the president knew that Flynn's actions reflected hostility toward the president. During Manafort's prosecution, and when the jury in the criminal trial was deliberating, the president praised Manafort in public, said that Manafort was being treated unfairly and declined to rule out a pardon. After Manafort was convicted, the president called Manafort a brave man for refusing to break and said that flipping almost ought to be outlawed. Then this other section is redacted. Number 11, conduct involving Michael Cohen. The president's conduct toward Michael Cohen, a former Trump Organization executive, changed from praise for Cohen when he falsely minimized the president's involvement in the Trump Tower Moscow project to castigation of Cohen when he became a cooperating witness. From September 2015 to June 2016, Cohen had pursued the Trump Tower Moscow project on behalf of the Trump Organization and had briefed candidate Trump on the project numerous times, including discussing whether Trump should travel to Russia to advance the deal. In 2017, Cohen provided false testimony to Congress about the project, including stating that he had only briefed Trump on the project 3 times and never discussed travel to Russia with him, in an effort to adhere to a party line that Cohen said was developed to minimize the president's connection to Russia. While preparing for his congressional testimony, Cohen had extensive discussions with the president's personal counsel, who, according to Cohen, said that Cohen should stay on message and not contradict the president. After the FBI searched Cohen's home and office in April 2018, the president publicly asserted that Cohen would not flip, contacted him directly to tell him to stay strong, and privately passed messages of support to him. Cohen also discussed pardons with the president's personal counsel and believed that if he stayed on message, he would be taken care of. But after Cohen began cooperating with the government in the summer of 2018, the president publicly criticized him, called him a rat, and suggested that his family members had committed crimes. And then additionally, overarching factual issues. We did not make a traditional prosecution decision about these facts, but the evidence we obtained supports several general statements about the president's conduct. Several features of the conduct we investigated distinguish it from typical obstruction of justice cases. First, the investigation concerned the president, and some of his actions, such as firing the FBI director, involved facially lawful acts within his Article II authority, which raises constitutional issues discussed below. At the same time, the president's position at the head of the executive branch provided him with unique and powerful means of influencing official proceedings, subordinate officers, and potential witnesses, all of which is relevant to a potential obstruction of justice analysis. Second, unlike cases in which a subject engages in obstruction of justice to cover up a crime, the evidence we obtained did not establish that the president was involved in an underlying crime related to Russian election interference. Although the obstruction statutes do not require proof of such a crime, the absence of that evidence affects the analysis of the president's intent to require consideration of other possible motives for his conduct. Third, many of the president's acts directed at witnesses, including discouragement of cooperation with the government and suggestions of possible future pardons, took place in public view. That circumstance is unusual, but no principle of law excludes public acts from the reach of obstruction laws. If the likely effect of public acts is to influence witnesses or alter their testimony, the harm to the justice system's integrity is the same. Although the series of events we investigated involved discrete acts, the overall pattern of the president's conduct toward the investigations can shed light on the nature of the president's acts and the inferences that can be drawn about his intent. In particular, the actions we investigated can be divided into two phases, reflecting a possible shift in the president's motives. The first phase covered the period from the president's first interactions with Comey through the president's firing of Comey. During that time, the president had been repeatedly told he was not personally under investigation. Soon after the firing of Comey and the appointment of the special counsel, however, the president became aware that his own conduct was being investigated in an obstruction of justice inquiry. At that point, the president engaged in a second phase of conduct involving public attacks on the investigation, non-public efforts to control it, and efforts in both public and private to encourage witnesses not to cooperate with the investigation. Judgments about the nature of the president's motives during each phase would be informed by the totality of the evidence. Conclusion. Because we determined not to make a traditional prosecutorial judgment, we did not draw ultimate conclusions about the president's conduct. The evidence we obtained about the president's actions and intent presents difficult issues that would need to be resolved if we were to make a traditional prosecutorial judgment. At the same time, if we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, we are unable to reach that judgment. Accordingly, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. So ultimately, this matter is left to Congress to deal with or to do with it what they do best, ignore it, and let this vile puke of a president continue to sully our traditions, our institutions, the rule of law, and our nation. Our only hope now, it seems, for justifiable legal consequences for Donald Trump are the many states' attorneys general across the country, specifically New York, where Donald Trump has operated criminally with impunity for seemingly his entire life. Sadly, I'm guarded in my optimism that this will happen, though. And that is sad because no one should be above the law, no matter your last name, no matter your wealth, no matter the political office you hold. We are all Americans and should be viewed identically in the eyes of the law. Equal justice under the law isn't some cute slogan for a bumper sticker or a protest sign. It's a powerful ideal enshrined in the United States Constitution. And we should all demand that it be upheld. Send packing any elected official who chooses otherwise.